Dear students, welcome to lecture 7 in strategic management, and as you can see, the topic for this lecture is Porter's model of competitive advantage of nations. Now, in the earlier lectures, we have been discussing about the corporate level strategies, and in that we have already talked about the various strategies which organizations use at the corporate level, and in the last class we had discussed the strategy of internationalization. Now, when we talk about internationalization, we have discussed the various strategies used when a company goes to the international markets. And a very important theory or a very important model related to this has been proposed by Michael Porter, a professor at the Harvard University. Now, according to Porter, the prosperity of a nation is not inherited. Not inherited meaning thereby that it is not transferred from one generation to another generation. It is not merely dependent on how much natural resources a country has, and how good its the all the raw material availability and all those things, factors of production, how readily they are available. These factors are important, but according to Porter, there is more to that. So, a nation's prosperity is not inherited, it is created. There are other factors beyond the natural factors which play a very important role in determining whether a nation will be competitive in the international market or not. And Porter says that we have observed that there are certain countries where certain industries thrive. They are doing very well. They are doing very they do great. They are very successful. And such industries may not be thriving in other parts of the world where maybe the raw material availability is the same. So, what are those reasons because of which there are certain industries or there are certain nations where certain industries do very well, and there are other nations where such industries are not doing well. So, that has been explained by Porter in this model of competitive advantage of nations. So, you can see Michael Porter's model of competitive advantage of nations. This is also known as the diamond model. Why? Because all the factors have been placed like in the shape of a diamond. It is a framework that focuses on explaining why certain industries within a particular nation are competitive internationally, whereas others are not. That is what I just said to you. Then it explains why certain companies in certain countries are capable of consistent innovation, whereas others might not. And it also explains how government and chance, there are two factors which are very important again in Porter's model. Government and chance can act as catalysts to improve a country's position in a globally competitive economic environment. So, this is the backgrounder for Porter's model. Now, according to Porter, see for example, we were just talking about there are certain industries which are doing in good in certain countries, but they may not be doing well in other. So, for example, South Korea is a hub, it is known for successful electronic goods companies. So, why it has been created or how it has been created, that is what is being explained in Porter's model. So, what are those factors which play a very important role? The first is firm strategy, structure and rivalry. We will take up these factors one by one. Second are the factor conditions. Third are the demand conditions. Fourth are related and supporting industries. So, these are the four factors which play a very important role in determining which country will have a competitive advantage over industries in other countries. And since, as I said, these factors have been placed in the shape of a diamond, that is why it is also known as the diamond model. So, let us take a look at these factors one by one. The first is firm structure, strategy, structure and rivalry. Now, according to Porter, this is a very important factor, because the manner by which companies are established, organized and managed determines the characteristics of domestic competition. And similarly, depending on domestic rivalry, how much in-house competition there is, how much companies exist in that country related to that product or to that sector. If there is lot of competition within the country, so what will happen? All the companies in one sector will strive to do their best. They will strive to innovate and get the best product or service, and as a result of that, what will happen? That they will improve in turn, right. So, for example, US consumer electronics market, it was faced with increasing prices of labor price was increasing. So, they thought what could be a solution to this, because you cannot help but to, you have to keep a control on the cost of production. So, labor is a very important part of the cost of production. So, what they did was that since they did not have any other way out, they thought of outsourcing all their manufacturing parts or manufacturing facilities or manufacturing areas of their organization or their companies to Taiwan and other Asian countries where labor cost was low. So, that was a solution which they thought was could solve their problem. On the other hand, so what they did in US companies, they moved all labor intensive activities to Taiwan and Asian countries, as I told you. On the other hand, when Japan was faced with the same problem, then Japan tried to innovate, and what did it do? It went for reduction of labor in the production process. If you reduce the amount of labor involved in the production process, what will happen? The cost of labor will go down and your problem is solved. So, what they did? They went for more and more automation, and when there was more and more automation, labor cost went down. So, this is how they tackled the problem. As a result of that, what happened? Japan was building assembly lines, it was building factories in USA, where US companies themselves have fled out because of high labor cost. And Japan, as you know, is a famous name, it became a very famous name. It could give a lot of competition to other companies from US and other parts of the world. So, Japanese companies could do that because they could think, they could innovate, right. So, that is the first very important thing. And then this is about when you have you are thinking and how to innovate, and then as you can see, it has been mentioned that firm strategy, structure and rivalry are very important. So, like for example, in Italian companies, they have the very famous companies are small or mid-sized, right, and they have a very kind of family setup of managing the business. So, they do well in areas or in sectors where there is lot of niche involved, customized products, flexibility, focus, and these can be into the area of furniture, these can be into the area of creativity, lighting. So, they do well in those areas. On the contrary, Germany has a very hierarchical system of management. So, here most of the people in the management would be from technical engineering backgrounds, and that is why German companies will do very well in technical engineering oriented industries like optics, where there is lot of precision involved, there is manufacturing, there is a careful development process which is involved. So, things like complicated machinery, they will do very well. So, it all depends on what is the firm's structure, and similarly rivalry is very, very important. How much intense is the domestic competition also helps firm to grow and innovate in the process. For example, Japan is famous for automobiles, and why their automobile companies are able to do so well, because very, very famous and world class companies like Nissan, Toyota, Suzuki, Honda, Mitsubishi, they all belong to Japan, and they are competing with each other and trying to outdo each other, and that is why they can do so well in the international market. Similarly, German cars are world famous because Mercedes Benz, Audi, BMW, they all come from Germany, and hence they are competing within their home domestic market, and rivalry is so high, so that they are able to bring the best to the international market also. Then the second is factor conditions. Factors, the natural resources available, the capital, human resources available. Now, created factors include skilled labor force, good infrastructure, and quality of research and knowledge base. These are all created factors. Certain factors are natural, but unless there is a lot of human resource, but unless you make them skilled, unless you make them competent, it has no value, right? Similarly, if you have lot of natural resource, but if you are not able to use it, you are not able to refine it, then in that case it is of no use. So, created factors according to Porter are very, very important. They include skilled labor force, good infrastructure, and quality of research and knowledge base. Porter argues that especially these created factors are more important to opposed natural conditions. So, as I said, that Porter has said that these natural factors are important, but unless you create out of them, because these natural factors may be present in many countries, right. So, unless you make them valuable, unless you derive something out of it, then they become not that important, right. So, as we discussed just before this, the example of Japan and USA, wherein because of increased labor cost, USA just shifted the manufacturing to some other countries, wherein Japan used this challenge to derive an opportunity and went for automation. So, you have to create certain things also. Then it is important that these created factor conditions are continuously upgraded through the development of skills and creation of new knowledge. So, you cannot be happy that you have good factors, people are very skilled, they are doing well. You have to, it is a continuous process, you have to continuously keep on working on it. Then competitive advantage results from the presence of world class institutions that first create specialized factors and then continually work to upgrade them. So, if you have in a country, if there are good let us say engineering institutions where students are equipped with technical skills, we have good research institutions which bring out innovations, lot of R&D is being carried out. So, what happens as a result of that? The natural factors improve, the natural factors can be converted into good created factors. And nations thus succeed in industries where they are particularly good at factor creation. So, again we are emphasizing the same point. Porter has said that nations that succeed in industries where they are particularly good at factor creation. So, it is not merely about the natural resources or the factors available with the country, it is also about how well they can create something out of those factors, or how well they can innovate or they can upgrade with their factors. The third is again a very important factor, that is home demand. Now, we have discussed about lot of competition within the firms in a country, which is leading to lot of innovation, improvement in products and services. Similarly, how demanding the customers are in the home country also influences how competitive or how well a company from a particular country or how well a country can face competition in the international market. So, if customers are demanding, then what will happen? They will be able to put the companies, their domestic companies on toes, and these companies will be forced to innovate and bring new features in their products and services. And when this happens, what will happen? That these new features will also flow into the international market, and such countries and such companies will eventually do very well in such markets. So, the home demand largely affects how favorable industries within a certain nation are. A larger market means more challenges, but also creates opportunities to grow and become better as a company. So, if a company brings up, there is an Indian company which brings up with a good product in the Indian market, then it is very difficult, because Indian market is so diverse, it is so huge, it may be very difficult for them to understand, to anticipate the needs of all the customers and bring a product which could satisfy most of the customers. But if a company is able to achieve this, what will happen? It can do wonders in the international market, because it has already catered to a very large and diverse market. So, that is what we are saying here. A larger market means more challenges, but also creates opportunities to grow and become better as a company. Nations gain competitive advantage in industries where the local customers give companies an earlier picture of emerging buyer needs, and where demanding customers pressure companies to innovate faster than their foreign rivals. So, this is what we have discussed, that if the customers are very demanding and they are very aware, then they will always force companies in their home country to innovate, to bring in better products and services, to bring in better features. And what will happen as a result of that? These companies will always be ahead of companies in those countries where customers are not that demanding and they are satisfied with whatever is being offered to them. So, a very good example of this is the camera industry in Japan. Camera we all know. So, in Japan, because customers, they are very fond of photo taking and camera, and they are very knowledgeable about what a camera is and how a good photograph can be taken, what should be the features in a good camera. As a result of that, camera companies have grown in Japan. They are doing immensely well. They have come out with the best features, and some of the best companies in the world, camera companies in the world, belong to Japan. And to name a few companies which come from Japan in the camera space, these are Canon, then Epson, Nikon, Olympus, Fujifilm, Sony, Ricoh, Casio, Sigma, Panasonic. So many companies are into the market of camera, just because the the Japanese customers are very demanding when it comes to camera, and they are very aware also. Another very good example is of the wine industry in France, because French people are sophisticated wine consumers. They want very fine quality of wine, and they consume it as a matter of routine. So, as a result of that, the wine companies in France, they have to constantly keep working on the variety of wines they can bring out, and as a result of that, French wines are unbeatable and best known in the world. So, this is how home demand would influence. Then next is related and supporting industries. This is a very important factor, because if a particular company exists and if there are no companies, there are no units, or there are no other businesses to support what this company is doing, they are not related companies, do not exist. In that case, the competitive advantage of that particular company or that nation cannot be sustained for a very long time. So, for example, you must have heard about companies who keep their suppliers with them. Big company, big corporate houses, whenever they establish a factory somewhere, they will also keep their supply ancillary units with them. So, similarly, if a company or if a nation has to do well in the international market, then it has to also take care of related and supporting industries. The presence of related and supporting industries provide the necessary foundation on which local industry can excel. Suppliers are crucial to enhancing innovation through more efficient and higher quality inputs, timely feedback and short times of communication. If you have had an idea of how Japanese production system works, you must be knowing that they work on the concept of just in time. That is, they have very close contacts, very collaborations with their suppliers, and they do not stock any raw material, and they just bring down their holding cost, and it is almost zero, because as and when the raw material is required, it is delivered immediately by the supplier. So, very important to have very strong connections and collaborations with the supplier, because it not only helps us in timely delivery of the raw material and availability, because if we have a strong collaboration and a long term association with the supplier, then he will entertain us, our requirements, before he entertains other companies. So, we will always be at priority. And secondly is that he will have very short response times. When we order, he will try to send us the delivery as soon as possible. And the third thing which helps is, when we have strong collaborations with the supplier, is that we are also assured of the quality, and not only of the quality, we can also discuss with the supplier, and if we want a little change in the product feature, as a result of which we need little change in the raw material, this can be told to the supplier beforehand and our problem can be solved. So, this is very well seen. You must have heard of this place called, those who are very conscious about fashion, Milan. Milan is a place in Italy, is a city in Italy, and it is known as the fashion capital of the world, because all fashion trends, it is said, start from Milan. So, you must have heard of this name also, Milan Fashion Week, right. So, how this industry has grown, this fashion industry has grown in Milan, because they have very close connections with fabric suppliers who supply them the fabrics, the latest fabrics, and they also alter the texture, the feel, the color of the fabrics according to the demands of the fashion industry, and that is why it rules the world. Similarly, in Italy itself, there is this Italian footwear cluster, known for the best quality leather shoes and footwear, and it is very how it has grown, because again these companies have very close contacts with the leather suppliers, and leather suppliers, they will get first hand information from these companies, from these leather footwear manufacturers, about what does the customer need, what are the customers changing taste and preferences, and they will tell them accordingly that this time, you know, they require leather or the raw material of this texture or of this color or whatever. So they can innovate, they can customize products, and they can deliver according to the changing needs of the customer, be very responsive in the market, and as a result of that, as I said, the Italian footwear industry rules the world. It often takes years of hard work and investments to create strong, related and supporting industries, and that assist domestic companies to become globally competitive. So, it is not that easy that overnight we can create, okay, we want to be very good, we want to be competitive in the international market, let's create lots of supporting industry and our work is done. No, because we have to be very particular about the quality, the ability of those supporting industries to be responsive and to be able to develop and innovate according to the requirements of the manufacturer. So, it takes lots of years. It is like planting a seed and letting it grow over a period of time. So, it is not an overnight activity. And then these are the four main factors, and if you remember in the model, there were two other factors, government and chance, and government's role is also important according to Porter. But what should be the role of government? You know, there are certain people who believe that governments should be very soft on industry. They should bring out policies which are pro-industry. They should always support the industry. There are other people, other set of views, which according to which, if the government keeps on supporting industry, what will happen? The industries will grow, they will survive, but they will never be competitive in the international market because their government protection will not help, right? So, let them be and let them grow, let them take up challenges, and the government should not be too protective about the industry. So, the role of government, as you can see, is described both as a catalyst, you know that they should help out or they should increase the rate at which the industries grow, or some people see it as a challenger, an entity or a body which imposes restrictions on industries which do not allow them to move beyond, you know, certain legal options. They should not go for illegal things and unethical options. So, that should be the role of a government. Porter does not believe in a free market where the government leaves everything in the economy to the invisible hand. So, he does not believe in the concept of a free market economy. However, Porter does not see the government as essential helper and supporter of industries either. Porter says that industries should not be too much helped by the government because it may help in the short run, but not in the long run. Government should encourage and push industry companies to raise their aspirations and move to even higher levels of competitiveness. So, the government's role should be to push or to motivate industries to move higher. And the last is chance. Now, this nobody has control over, but this is also a very important factor influencing business. Likelihood of the occurrence of external events such as war, natural disasters and random events like that COVID happened. Right. So, nobody knew about it. So, these are beyond the control of anyone, and the discontinuities created by chance may lead to advantages for some companies, but there could be disadvantages for others. Like for example, e-commerce companies like Amazon, they are thriving in this pandemic, but it has spelled, you know, disaster for many other companies. So, it depends how chance goes. These factors cannot be changed, they should at least be monitored so that you can adapt according to these conditions. So, these are the various factors which influence the competitive advantage of nations according to Porter's model. I hope you have understood it. Thank you so much.